Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Candle magic. What is it? How do you use it? Does it actually really work? Well, today's guest is going to tell us all about candle magic. I can't wait for you to meet her. So let's welcome her in. Welcome, Lucya Starza. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
I am so excited to have you here and talk all about candle magic. I'm really excited about this because I haven't really delved into that realm. So, why don't you start us a little bit by telling us how maybe your childhood was? Was this in your life when you were growing up already?
Yes, I mean, I would say that I have always really loved candles. And in my book on candle magic, I right at the very beginning, I mentioned that right at the very, very start of the book. And I first talk about blowing out birthday cake candles and making a wish, which I think a lot of us have done. And we every year there's an extra candle on the cake, the right number for our years, and we make a wish. And we people say you should make your wish, but you should keep it secret. You should keep it secret if you want it to come true. And
What's that? Do
so
you
I
know why
think,
that is? Do you have some insights on why we should keep our wishes secret?
well, um, it helps not to dissipate the energy. So I think that can be there. I mean, there are many ways that if people make a wish, they can just dissipate the energy, and so it doesn't work as well as it might otherwise do. And I think that if you talk about it too much, or if you even if you just keep fretting about it too much, you will dissipate the energy. And I think it's best just to cast the wish and just allow that wish to go into the universe and for your wish to come true.
Yeah, actually, I have noticed things like that. Like, not with the birthday, but like if you have an idea or if I have an idea and then you tell people, I don't know, for some reason
Mm.
it falls flat after that. Has anyone else out there like let us know? Have you had that experience where you share your ideas, your thought, what you wanted to do, and then it just deflates?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say that kind of those little ideas when you first get them and they're so wonderful, they're like a little tiny seed, and you plant it, but you've got to nurture it. You've really got to nurture it. And I think sometimes if you share your ideas with other people too soon before they've grown into a lovely big flower, um, other people can be a bit scornful about them and they can pick holes in them, and you think, perhaps it wasn't such a good idea after all. And you should that shouldn't you should allow your idea to like come out to be the brilliant thing you want it to be.
Awesome. Okay, so like you said, you were talking about like birthday wishes. What else?
Well, another thing, you wouldn't do this nowadays, but when I'm quite old, I'm 65, so I'm old. Um, when I was a little child, I had a little birthday cake, no, a little nightlight candle in my bedroom at night. And the idea was that having a light in the room would kind of keep the nightmares at bay. And nowadays, you'd have an electric light, much safer. You shouldn't put a lit light into a child's bedroom. But I think that really felt like the candlelight was shedding a kind of a light, a circle of protection, a light of protection to sort of keep the things that children fear at bay, and nightmares. I mean, I think like a lot of children, I did have nightmares, and it was very helpful to have a little light there. So it felt that there was something protective about the candlelight. And the other is my father was Catholic, and in the local church there was a lovely rack of candles where people could light candles underneath the statue of the Madonna and the baby Jesus. And it was probably my favorite part of the church. And I mean, I'm a I'm now a pagan, I'm a Wiccan, but I still feel that there's that same divine feminine power there. And to me, lighting a candle and asking for help of the divine feminine, or from other deities or whatever that you might honor, it's really powerful. It is a really powerful thing, and one thing that I often say is that there is not really a great deal of reason for us in the modern world to use candles anymore. I mean, we might if there's a power cut, but even then we can use torches. We have electric lights that are really much safer and more practical than candles, but we don't. We use candles. I mean, they're really popular. You go into any supermarket and you will find a lot of lovely candles there. And we buy them because they have this power to change the atmosphere in our room. They turn a meal into a romantic dinner. If you've got candles on the table, you put candles in your bathroom to turn it into a spa. Um, you use candles for all sorts of things. You know, on a winter's evening, we might not have real burning fires in our homes. I mean, I live in London, where you're not really supposed to have that coal fires and things like that anymore. Um, but a candle can give you that glowing flame, and there's something, I think it really harks back to our distant ancestors, who, for them, fire was the means of protection, the means of comfort, the means of cooking the food. It was just so vital for life. And so it gives us comfort, it gives us warmth, and it has that power to change and transform things.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, every time you go somewhere, there's candles there, and I'm always attracted to them, right? I used to have a huge collection of candles in, I've been using them and stuff. But yeah, like there's something about them that makes you feel better.
Yes. Yes.
Do you feel it raises our frequency when we light a candle?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes.
How do you
Um,
think it does that?
um, I'll have to think about that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. As a Wiccan, the concept of raising the frequency isn't really something really inherent within Wicca, although it's something that I understand it's something which is an aspect of personal development, of raising of helping with raising the mood, and of contacting the divine both within us and without. But it's not really, I probably don't use that phrase, but I would say that a candle, in terms of the ways that I would think of it, a candle is certainly a time-honored way of connecting with the divine. You will light a candle, and the hot air will rise from the candle, the light will rise from the candle, and your wishes and your prayers will rise up and can be an offering, much the same as incense, or burning some incense or something like that is an offering, and helps uh, and can help with a connection with the divine. I think it generally just cheers you up. I think that the light is a very cheerful thing, and it cheers you up. And I think that it's a good focus for meditation and contemplation. So lighting a candle as part of a meditative practice or a contemplative practice um, can be it can be a very useful part of that. I will often meditate on a candle flame. So I think it can really help with any kind of spiritual practice in that sense.
So from my perspective, just so I can understand better, because when you were saying, like, you light the candle and it kind of like brings that wish up,
Mm.
do you feel that maybe it's like, I don't know, like for I know it's different languages, but like could it be kind of like opening a portal into the next realm, connecting this 3D to the
It can
unseen?
Yeah, I think that it can certainly help. I mean, certainly there's a lot of folklore about lighting a candle to guide on times when the veil between the worlds is thin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lighting a candle to help guide the spirits of the ancestors back so that the living can contact their ancestors. There's a lot of folklore associated with that. So absolutely, it's a and yes, spirits are often are attracted by candle flames. Um, um, Obviously, that can be mischievous spirits as well as the ones you want. So, I mean, I generally speaking, before I'm doing any magic or any kind of certainly anything to try and contact the ancestors, I will always cast a circle. And I actually use a candlelight to cast a circle very often. I will often either walk around my circle with a candle in a lantern and visualize the light spreading around and also spreading up and down like a protective globe. If there isn't room, then I will put my candle in one place, perhaps on my altar, and I'll use my wand and visualize directing the light from the candle around and spreading out into a globe of light.
Amazing. I love this is so intriguing, and I'm so happy that I met you, that you could come here and like enlighten us more. No pun intended with the enlightening thing here with the candle. Um, so what other uses can we use candles for? Like, or what do you use them for? Actually, let me back up a little bit. How did you start using them for your own use when you started really connecting and realizing that there was something special about the candles?
Right. Well, I come from a slightly peculiar family. As I said, my dad was Catholic, but he was also quite, I'd say you'll probably say he was into New Age practices and he did dowsing and he was quite good at dowsing and he was very much into things like divination and also like palm reading. And
So,
on the
so an open-minded Catholic.
yeah, very open-minded Catholic. And my grandma on my mother's side, so the other side, she was an astrologer and a theosophist. Theosophy is a religion that really believes that all religions, everyone has their own path, everyone has their own spiritual path, and ultimately they will all lead to the same place. But it's like you need to follow your own path. So there was very much this belief in my family that I mean, I actually asked my grandma once, I sort of said, well, you know, uh, dad's a Catholic and you're a Theosophist. And so on the other side of the family, some of my cousins have become Buddhists. And I said, which one's right? He said, well, they're all right. They're all right for them. Everyone has their own path, and they will all lead to the same place. But we all have our own way of going through them. So I think that was very much the um, sort of belief in my family.
And that is so open-minded compared to what we see a lot, especially in North America, when it's, either one or the other, the division of this is the right one, as opposed to allowing people just to be on in their own path, whatever falls for them. I love that. Great. So, when did you start using candle magic intentionally?
Oh yes, right,
How
okay.
did that
Um,
happen?
Yeah, well, I when I was in my 20s, I met some people who were pagans. Oh, what's this, And for me, I hadn't, although I was brought up a Catholic, but an open-minded Catholic, it hadn't really gelled with me too much. I think it was that Catholicism is too patriarchal, really, for me. And I'd always felt that there was a goddess. I'd always had this feeling that there was a goddess. And um, when I met pagans, it's like, well, yeah, we honor the goddess as well as the god. And so for me, that really gelled. And I started training with a Wiccan coven, and that was where I first really did candle spells as such, or other kinds of spells as well. But candle spells were always very much my favorite, and something that, even though I became a little bit of a lapsed witch for many years, I would still nevertheless at times light a candle and make a wish, or light a candle to sort of ground, and to meditate or to contemplate. And so it was always a sort of a little ritual, lighting a candle.
Mm. So you have mentioned that you use candle magic to manifest things. How does that work?
Okay. Well, very simply, I can show you. I can
Yeah.
absolutely show you.
Oh, that would
Um,
be awesome.
uh, Really, for the most basic of candle spells, all you need is just a little tea light or something like that.
Huh?
And then you think of what it is that you want to manifest or wish for.
Okay.
And you, once you thought about it, that might be, there might be a lot of images and words that are in your head. So it might be, oh, right, okay, so I really, really need some money because I have to pay the bills, and I have to do this, that, and the other. But you then try to sum, kind of condense that right down into one word. And generally speaking, I I suggest people don't use money, because money is kind of the intermediary. It's not the end result. So it's like, okay, what do you need to do? What do you need to do? And it might be you need to pay the rent. It might be you simply need to pay the rent. So you would sum that up, and you might sum that up in one word of rent, uh, or or you actually, what you really want is the security of feeling that your home is safe. And so actually the word you would sum it up as is security. So you try to really drill down to what it is you really want, what it is you really
Want to
want in your
feel.
heart, what it is, yes, what you
Okay.
feel. And that one word, you carve it into your candle.
I've never heard that before.
What?
Carving it into the candle.
Yeah. And so you can use the end of a match
Huh?
or a cocktail stick or a pin or something like that, and you carve your word into your candle. It doesn't matter if it isn't really visible, it
Huh?
is there.
Okay.
And then you pop your candle into a little candle holder or something, just to keep it safe, really.
Hmm.
And you light it. And as you're lighting it, you visualize your wish coming true. You visualize what it is you want. And you can then actually say or think more words than the one. And you kind of say it as though it is happening. So I am secure. I am safe in my home. You know, my home is secure. My rent is paid. You can think all of those things, and you visualize it as you're lighting the candle. And then really you just leave your candle to burn down. Now, you don't need to stare at it all that time. I think a lot of people think, I've got to sit there staring at my candle. But like even a little tea light, it's going to take hours to burn down. So you can quite happily let it burn down and know that your wish is cast. And earlier I was saying about not keep fretting about things. So it's like it's done. Your wishes is going into the candle, is sending your wishes into the universe. The candle is burning down and your wishes going to the universe. And so long as you keep an eye on it so it doesn't set light to anything, you have to think of fire safety as well. You can just be confident that your wish, your spell is working, your wishes are going into the universe. And that is a very, very simple candle spell.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I've never seen that before. I have a question. What if, let's say you don't have time to allow the candle to completely burn down while, let's say you do it like and you have to go out or something, can you turn it off and then light it again, or does that take away from the spell? How does that work?
Okay, there are a couple of options. You could use a smaller candle. So you could use a birthday cake candle. They only take about 10
Okay.
minutes to burn down. So yeah, you could use a smaller candle. A lot of people buy what's called spell candles, and they're kind of like little pillar candles, but they're very tiny. They're sometimes also called chime candles. You sometimes see them on those Christmas ornaments where the little angels go round with the candles underneath them. They take about an hour to an hour and a half to burn down, so that is quicker. So you can do that, and a lot of witches, rather than using a tea light, which can take several hours to burn down, or buying one of those massive, huge candles that looks really impressive and takes a whole week to burn down, um, a lot of them people will use a smaller candle. But yes, you can extinguish your candle and then relight it again. And I would say it's always safer to, and people recommend snuffing the candle out. So getting a candle snuffer and snuffing it out, it's safer. And it's kind of, you're just halting it. You're halting it, and then you will relight it later. And when you relight it again, you can visualize again and say a few more words as you light it again.
I had seen one person show how they did manifestation with a candle, and it was a big candle. So but they were like, you use this every day until it burns down.
Yeah,
And
you can do that. That is that is kind of good for if you want something as an almost permanent, ongoing manifestation. So if you always want to attract love and peace to your home, then getting a great big pillar candle that you um, enchant for attracting love and peace to your home, then that is perfect with a great big pillar candle. So yes, I think if you're doing like a one-off spell, really. So for example, if someone's unwell and they've asked you to send them healing wishes, then you might light a small candle. But if it's general for general good health all the time, then you might use a great big candle in a great big candle holder.
oh, okay, that's a really great explanation. Can anyone do this, or do you have to have some type of training or be a part of something, or can just anyone do it?
Anyone, yeah, anyone can do it. Yeah, anyone can do it. I mean, I think that a lot of people make wishes. I don't really know what it's like in America, but in England, as I said, I've mentioned birthday cake wishes. People will throw a coin into a wishing well and make a wish. People will wish on a star when they see the first star of the evening. There are lots of occasions when people make a wish, and really all that um, witchcraft training does is try to come up with more effective ways of doing that.
Right, right. So, would you be comfortable sharing some of the things that you've manifested through the candles?
Well, mostly what I get asked for is healing, to be honest. That is very, very common, if someone's ill. And they will often say, they won't necessarily say, will you light a candle for me? But sometimes they do if they're a fellow practitioner or they know that I'm a witch, they will say, can you light a candle and send healing wishes? But most often they'll say, or can you send me get well wishes? And so yes, that is what I would do. And I have had, I mean, there was one person who was their husband was taken very ill when they were abroad, and they said, Lucya, I know you're good at this. Please light a candle and wish him well. And he did make, having he was really taken suddenly ill, but he made a very good recovery and was fine. So I do get people saying that worked really well. And I teach candle magic classes, and often I don't only teach candle magic, I teach various things. And I taught one last weekend on amulets and talismans. And I have people who would come back to my other classes and say, oh, at your last class, that candle spell that I did, it really worked. So,
I
which is
love
really
that.
nice, which is really nice. I mean, I would say that I'm not someone who believes that magic always works. What I think it does is nudge things in the right direction.
Mhm.
It helps. It gives an added energy. It gives an added impetus. But I mean, you have to put the real work in as well. If you're doing a spell, say, to get a new job, you obviously got to apply for jobs. Although, I mean, it's not always that. Um, I did need a bit of money recently. I had a really massive expense that I couldn't get out of paying, and I'm freelance. I teach work classes, workshops. I write books. I don't get a really regular income, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got very little money. And I've been growing basil since the start of the year. And basil, I mean, this isn't candle magic, this is herbs, but basil is associated with abundance and wealth. And actually, I've got quite a few basil plants now. Well, okay, I'm going to be putting basil into my salads for lunchtime. I'm going to be using a lot of basil. And yeah, and I suddenly got a check for £70 that I wasn't expecting. And then a royalty payment for £295 that I wasn't expecting. And it was money I was owed, but it was like I really wasn't expecting it. It was so long ago that I did the work. I thought they're not going to pay me. But then they turned up when I was needing just a little bit of extra money. So yes, I genuinely do think that you're nudging things in the right direction, and sometimes you're just attracting that energy just by doing that little bit of extra magical work to
Showing you the path,
yeah.
like this is the path, and then you actually have to walk that path.
Yeah.
Take the action. I love that. I had a question while you were speaking. Oh, the basil. Um, I planted the basil plant, like a tiny one, right outside in my backyard. It is gigantic. I'm not even exaggerating. It's like this big. I didn't even know one basil plant could grow that big.
That is pretty big. Mine are in the kitchen window, so mine aren't that big.
Yeah, well, I got it, from the grocery store. It was tiny, like just regular, like they usually are. But I put it outside. It's like this. It's full of flowers. I know once it starts to flower that you're not, it changes the taste and all that. So I'm not eating it. I just let it be. But it's taking over, and I'm like, what? It's giant. It's like I'm not excited. It's like this big. Like seriously, and it's full of flowers, and of course it attracts the bees and the butterflies, and it's just beautiful. I had no idea that it was connected to abundance or money.
Yeah.
Do you teach your classes in person, or do you do them through Zoom, or both?
Well, both. I teach classes in London in person at a really lovely bookshop, Treadwell's Bookshop in Store Street in London, and I teach workshops there regularly, sort of once or twice a month. I'll be teaching a workshop. I teach scrying and candle magic and amulets and various other things. So I do that. But I also teach via the College of Psychic Studies, and I teach scrying there mostly. And I've got an online class coming up in the autumn, and that is it's 2 evenings, and it goes through divination using water and fire and crystals and other things as well, sort of looking at trees and that kind of thing.
Fun. Oh, and that you said in the fall. So over here in the States, we celebrate Halloween. Do you celebrate that there too?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, witches and Wiccans, we celebrate the cycle of the seasons or the wheel of the year. And so we celebrate at the same time as Halloween, we celebrate Samhain, which is kind of the end of summer. It's kind of like, yes, it's considered, the end of summer and the start of winter. and it's a time when you honor the dead who have passed. So it's a time when the veil between the worlds are thin, and quite often we will just light a single candle in a room and sit still and try to make contact with our ancestors who have passed. I mean that is a Wiccan tradition. Halloween itself, it's not as big as in the States. Back when I was a child, we used to have Halloween parties though. We didn't go out trick or treating, but we used to have Halloween parties and we'd dress up and do apple bobbing and things like that. Nowadays, it's a little bit bigger and you do get a bit more trick and treating. Interestingly, trick or treating kind of, there are some old origins in both Ireland and in parts of England that was similar to trick or treating. In Somerset, there was something called Punky Night, and children would go around say on Halloween and go, "It's Punky Night tonight. It's Punky Night tonight." Adam and Eve would not believe it's Punky Night tonight. If give me a candle, give me a light. If you haven't a candle, a penny's all right. It's Punky Night tonight. And they would go around from house to house, begging either candles or pennies.
Huh.
It's a bit similar.
Yeah, that is. I did not know that story. And also you mentioned, like you make a connection perhaps with, those who have crossed over. That's also like in the Catholicism, that's around All Saints Day, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It has that connection. And I don't know. I know Dia de los Muertos in Mexico is celebrated. Is that, I don't know if that's the same time or if it happens more in the spring for them, but it's like that same thing of connecting with the souls of the departed.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of, it seems that I think it's something about the time of year, because as I said, I'm a pagan. We celebrate the cycles of the season. And at that time of year when the plants are dying back and it's kind of it, and you've got like the mist in the air and I think it's that time when it just feels right to have a celebration of death, which is an aspect of life. I mean, I think in our modern world, quite often death is seen as it's a big taboo. It's like we don't want to think about it, and obviously, it can be scary. It can be scary, but it's necessary. You plants have to die back because they rot and fertilize the earth so that new plants can rise again. It has to happen. Even for humans, obviously we mourn our loved ones who have gone, but sometimes, if when people are old and maybe they're suffering, it is a gentle kindness and a release to move on into the next stage, whatever you believe the afterlife is. I mean, people who report near-death experiences, none of them seem to say that it was horrible. They most of them
Exactly.
seem to say that it was peaceful.
And
It was
loving and beautiful, and they don't want to come back.
yeah.
So the time around, Halloween or end of October, the veil is thinner, right? So do you find that doing a ritual with the candles that does help you communicate better or easier with the departed?
Yeah, yes, I would say so. I mean, I do feel a connection with some of my ancestors.
Mhm.
Um, uh, One thing that I always say though is that people sometimes expect their ancestors to have changed after they die, but they don't. So it's like once I was at a Wiccan Samhain celebration and we were getting connection and I got a strong connection from an elderly great aunt of mine who passed over many years ago, and she was having a bit of a go at me about the state of the garden and telling me what plants I should plant. That's exact, and she had a beautiful garden. She was so green fingered. She was really good at growing flowers, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what she would do. And so yeah, I do think um I think it feels the right time. But obviously you can contact the spirits, the ancestors at other times as well.
And how would you do that using candles? Would you do it similar to like making a wish? Like, or how would you do that using the candle?
Um, to be honest, I tend to do it using scrying. So what I will do is fill a bowl with water and light candles around the edge of the bowl of water so their reflection falls onto the bowl, or just a single candle,
Mhm.
and then gaze into the water and and ask questions and try to connect with the ancestors through the water. And that's actually usually what we did in the coven. We would have a bowl of water or a cauldron of water. We'd fill a cauldron with water quite often and light a candle and gaze into the cauldron as a kind of again, you were talking about candle being a portal. I think the bowl of water can very much be a portal to the other realms that you can gaze through to get messages.
That would make sense because I mean, a lot of times, like during meditation or journeys of the mind, we end up near a lake or near a body of water, and that does make sense. Having the water there as a different type of portal that can connect you to whatever it is you're connecting to with intention. Amazing. Okay. So you have a book, you said?
Yeah, that is, there we go.
Candle Magic, Pagan Portals. Oh, look at that. Amazing. It's like the same words I was using. Yay.
Yeah,
Um,
Pagan Portals is a series. I mean, that's another of my books that's also in the Pagan Portals series, Guided Visualisations. And there's my book on scrying. And there's my book on the Wheel of the Year.
yay. Where can we find all of these books?
Well, you can order them from Amazon. You can go to my publisher, which is Moon Books. It's part of Collective Inc. So you can search on um, let's look at the most, because the website slightly changed, and I'm going to find the most recent one. Oh, actually, it just says here www.moon-books.net.
Yeah,
So you should be able to find that. But we're part of Collective Inc., which is a bigger publishing group.
I
But
see.
Moon Books specializes in books about paganism and magic and things like that. And they've got other imprints, mind, body, spirit imprints and things like that.
And the other thing, you started this conversation mentioning that the candle had a lot of feminine energy, which I also you're saying like you bring out the divine feminine through the candles, and I was like, oh, that for some reason that keeps coming up into my space, the divine
Oh,
feminine, and it's like here's another piece to connect to the divine feminine, and um yeah, I mean, you do see more women use it. Not that, I mean, we
hmm.
both have male and female um, energies within us, but how can that help us? How can the use of candle help us awaken or strengthen the divine feminine within us?
Mm. Yeah, I think I was more saying that it was seeing the candles in front of the image of the Madonna and child, rather than the candle itself. Because yeah, I'm not really sure that I do agree that it is more women than men who like candles. And yeah, I don't know whether I think you can use candles in any form of devotion. But although I honor gods as well as goddesses, I probably work more with deity, um, with goddesses as deity. I do work more with goddesses as deity, and I mean, what I will often do. I mean, I've actually got a goddess altar and a god altar. They're only tiny. They're on top of my fireplace. One's one side and one's the other. But I work a lot more with the goddess altar, and I will very often. I've got little figurines, various figurines, and some of them I've made myself out of air drying clay, and some of them I've been given or bought. And I will often light candles and put them there to honor the goddess. I I often do feel I should honor the God side a bit more, and I do sometimes, but I am more drawn to goddess energy. I think we need that balance more because I think that, you know, there's been so much of the patriarchal side of religion,
Mhm.
and I think the feminine side of spirituality just needs that more effort to balance more.
Great. So, where can people go find you?
Oh, right. Okay. Well as going to my publisher's website,
Mhm.
um, they can find my blog. Now, my blog is called A Bad Witch's Blog. I'm not a wicked witch. I called it a Bad Witch's Blog, largely because I was a bit of a lapsed witch. I have mentioned this before, haven't I? That I went for quite a few years without really doing much. And I thought I want to do more. And I called it a I'd read a book called The Bad Bird Watcher's Guide. I'd recently just read Bad Bird Watcher's Guide. And a bad bird watcher was someone who just looks out the window at the got birds in the garden and doesn't like, you know, go for
Uh-huh.
miles with binoculars to look at rare birds. I thought, I'm that kind of witch. I'm, you know, but I wanted to do more. I'm bad in the sense that I was a bit lapsed and hadn't done much
Uh-huh.
recently.
It's a great
But that was
name.
a long
It's
while ago. That was a long while ago. That was about 17 years ago. So it's absolutely worked since I started my blog
uh-huh.
and started reading more books about paganism, visiting pagan sites, and then wrote all these books, which kind of came out of the blog, and then started teaching workshops. And I often say to myself, it's like, wow, I just started a blog and all this has happened. How did I become an author? I mean, my book on candle magic is a bestseller apparently. It's like, how did this happen?
How does
How
it
did
get
this
any better than
happen?
that? I love it. Amazing. Great. Well, I'm also going to put all of your handles and all your information in the description underneath this video. So if you want to get in touch with Lucya here, just go down and you'll see all of the information. Is there anything else you would like to share or tell the audience that we haven't touched on or that I haven't asked you before we go?
Mm. Well, I mean, um, I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is coming out, but we're coming up to the time of the equinox.
Mhm.
And the equinox is when the day and night are equal length, and that happens around the 21st of September. And then there's another equinox in the spring, but we're coming up to the autumn or fall equinox. And one of the things that I like to do is try to get some balance into my life. And I normally light two candles, and one's a light colored candle, one's a dark colored candle. And I make two lists. And one is the things that I want less of in my life, or perhaps things that have run their course and I should, I need to give less energy and time to. And the other is the things that I want more of in my life, that I want to attract more of and do more of. And by lighting these candles, it's a little ritual that I do at each of the equinoxes. And it kind of helps me balance out my life so that I'm not just doing things out of routine because I've always done them. I'm thinking about, okay, I've done that long enough and I'm going to stop that and I'm going to do something else and to attract more of what I want. So that's something that anyone can do, that can be done around that time.
Is that something that you can also use with the cycle of the moon? Like
Yeah.
like with the
Yeah.
new moon to let
Oh, yeah.
go?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I usually find that the full moon is a really good time for any kind of psychic work or magic,
Mhm.
and that the dark moon is a good time for contemplation and looking within, and that the waxing moon, when the moon is increasing, is a good time for manifesting and increasing stuff, and the waning moon, when the moon is getting smaller, is a good time for letting go of things.
Right, that's such good information. Thank you so much. Anyone who has any other questions that we did not cover, just put them in the comments and we will look into that and see if they can be answered. If you have something that came up for you and you're like, oh, like I would have liked to have this answer, then just put it in the comments, and then we'll see what we can do about that. Well, it's been lovely having you here. What a great conversation. So eye-opening. I'm about to go and do a candle magic spell right now, just after this, because I am fired up with the information. Thank you for coming and sharing this wisdom with me and this audience.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely chatting.
Thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.